Hello everybody, I'm Angelin, and I'm here to briefly introduce to you what I think is an extremely important part of the UI layer that you may or may not know, and that's fragments for navigation. So apps, whether that's mobile apps or web apps, they all usually have more than one screen, unless it's you're making something like a static portfolio. In that case, it's a static website. But for Android apps, navigation is an extremely common and essential function of interacting with an app, since less can fit on a phone screen than a desktop or laptop screen. And so I'm making a video on how navigation can be accomplished more efficiently with fragments. So far we know from Lab 2 is that we can navigate between screens or activities. So this is my implementation of Lab 2. Just to remind you, in Lab 2 what we learned was that we can use things like start activity or launch or register activity for result if you use that. If you want to bundle something and send something to the other activity, and then you get a result code getting the intent back. So basically we had a main activity, and then we could update tipping percentages by going to another activity, doing some updates, and then going back to the other activity with the new data. So that is what we did in Lab 2. And we know that our app basically can have a collection of those activities in this backstack. And the backstack is basically your navigation states. And so when you start your app, you start at main activity, which is the bottom of the stack. So we've defined these activities as the window in which the app draws the UI. So the activity draws all of the UI in your activity main layout, and so it's the single most focused thing that a user can see on the screen basically. And so what we're doing every time is when we create activities we push it on the backstack, not popped, and then when we go back, this activity is destroyed and popped off the stack. And so this is code from there. And so there are a few problems with that, though. It's still okay to navigate between multiple activities, but there's some motivation to why we use fragments instead. So some are just memory overhead, view duplication, and slower transactions, and kind of not very smooth transitions. And so activities are the activity scope is a much more complex thing than a fragment. Fragments are meant to be reused. They're supposed to help you prevent view duplication. So let's say I wanted to have an app toolbar, and I make this layout for a navigation bar. What I've had a problem with in a previous project is for every single activity, if I wanted a toolbar, I had to basically paste the same view in every activity layout. And this is kind of a problem because a lot of the time you want some common UI elements between activities. And so what you have to do to have the same thing is you just need to copy it again. And so, basically it's can we do better than this? Is there a way to be a lot more efficient with sharing states, reusing views, and navigating a lot more smoothly between activities? And so that's where modern Android architecture single activity applications come in. So instead of having to recreate and destroy activities every time you want to navigate between screens, why not just have one and have reusable fragments as screens or destinations? So in the official Android best practices, activities should serve as the single source of truth. the global host for navigation and have the common UI stuff like the toolbars, and use and then have the screens and then have fragments as reusable screens, and the activity should only know how to transition and pass data between them. And this is also very helpful because then we can leverage things like ViewModels to basically share data and states between fragments. In the last ViewModel video, I showed how you can share ViewModels at an activity level with fragments. So this is where it is especially very useful. And then again, I showed this recommendations for Android architecture page in the UI layer video, and I showed that ViewModels were strongly recommended for the UI layer. But the single activity application is just recommended using navigation fragments. Just wanted to show that where that was from. But basically, even though it's recommended and not really required, because it's the best practice and it just makes a lot more sense to use fragments as reusable screens and have like a graph between them. It's just a much more easier way of navigating between screens. And it just makes a lot more sense to use destinations within an activity scope instead of having activities themselves as destinations. And so I'm just going to briefly go over the important stuff of the navigation component. So this is what we're going to use to navigate between fragments in a single activity using this single activity architecture. So you need the navigation graph, the map for your screens, nav host. This is the container that's gonna, the global UI within your activity that's gonna have that graph and have all of those destinations. This is like the container for the screens, and so that's why it's also called fragment container view, because it contains the destination fragments inside there. And you have the NavController. This is kind of like one of the most important things that you program. This is the thing that actually manages the app navigation and also manages the backstack for you. And then this navigation UI is basically like, it's, you know, how when you have things like a drawer layout or the bottom nav, you define the menu items and stuff like that. So anyways, I'm going to go over the demo now, but I just wanted to show some screenshots of basically each and every one of these things. So this is what creating a navigation graph looks like. It has its own folder, a unique folder like drawable layout and stuff like that. You have a navigation folder for navgraph, and this is how you set up actions and linking. And then the nav host, it's a view. It's a fragment container view, and this is it has the nav host fragment and the navigation graph. And then this is the navigation view. So I'm using the drawer layout, and these are the menu items that I want to select when I navigate. These are supposed to go to the destination fragments, and it also has its own special folder called menu. And then tying everything together, this is a lot of code I'm going to go over in the demo, but this is your main activity where you set up all of the NavController stuff. And this is how you navigate to a fragment. You basically use the NavController and just call this navigate function. The second argument is a bundle. This is how you pass data between fragments when you navigate, but you know, you don't have to have this, and you can just simply navigate to another fragment. All right, let's get into the demo now. So for my code demo, I made this cute little app called Flower Decks. If you know Pokemon, this is supposed to be like a Pokédex, but it's for flowers. And so it has this drawer layout, and you can click on one of these cards, and each of them have tabs. And so I'm gonna show you how, I made this. Okay, so like with any app, you start with your main activity layout, since this is the first screen that we see, and especially since this is a single activity app, everything is basically, the main activity is like the most important, and it lays the foundation for where all of our fragments are going to live. First off, if you want to create an app with navigation, what you need to do is you need to choose what kind of navigation UI that you want. For me, I have jar layout, and it says that I have to, this has to be the top level container. So if you go to our navigation view slide, you can choose like the kinds of navigation that you want. Like for example, there's bottom navigation, and what I chose is this navigation jar with the hamburger icon. So, yeah, choose a layout for bottom navigation. I'm not sure what they have, bottom navigation view. But for me, I have jar layout, and so that's why in my main activity I have this as the root, because I have a jar layout, and behind the jar layout is a container of the rest of the views. And then what I have here is a linear layout with the toolbar. The toolbar is this thing, and because I'm using a jar layout, what's nice is that since it's a jar layout, it automatically knows to make this thing, to have this with the hamburger icon. And then this is the fragment container view where we're gonna have the nav host fragment. And we have our navigation graph to know, so that we know where to start and what destinations link to, which destinations. So this is basically the first step. We need the jar, you need your navigation layout root, and you'd like a toolbar, and you'd like your fragment container view. We'll get to our navigation view in a bit, but this is what you want to do. So first things first, when creating your navigation graph, you need to put in this special folder called navigation. And this folder is unique, just like layout and drawable are. And so to create this special folder, you go to Res and you click New and Android Resource Directory. And when you click resource type, you can see that navigation is there, and so is menu. So you'll want to know that because we have to create this navigation in menu. But anyways, for navigation, I created this nav graph, and it has the navigation tag. And so basically it just has a bunch of fragments with a bunch of links, which are these actions. You can see as I'm hovering over them, like this, this visualizer shows you which is the fragment and what these links are. So this is pointing to settings. And this is all quite easy to make because what you can do to, do this is basically you can just use this to create new destinations, and it has all these nice fragment layouts for you. And so when you try to make a new fragment, it gives you a layout, and it gives you Java or Kotlin code for the fragment to inflate it. So this is like really nice. So yeah, I have all of these fragments created. I have them right here. Let's see. Your flowers fragment is basically blank. This is how they create it for us. And I think your flowers fragment this is like the boilerplate for that. This is what was generated for me. So that's basically what you get. But yeah, so this navigation graph is how you define the fragments. That's kind of where you get to building your fragment screens. And okay, so the final part about the main activity layout is the navigation view. So this navigation view is going to use this menu. So with our jar layout, these are the menu items that we're going to have. And you can see here that, this is what the jar layout The drawer layout is on this side, but you know, this is just represents what the menu items are supposed to be. So again, you have to create this special menu folder. And so one important part about this is that this ID, the flowers fragment here, flowers settings, they all have to be consistent with the IDs in this fragment. So whatever's the ID in the fragments of the navigation graph, you put that in navigation menu. Otherwise, it will not work. So, because these two are linked together. So yeah, this is all that's really it. In your main activity, all you need is your navigation UI, your toolbar, the fragment container view that has your nav host, your nav graph, and it will hold all of your you'll have all of the screens, and the navigation UI for like your drawer or your bottom navigation thing. Okay, so now that we have all of the layouts done, so now let's go to main activity. So it looks like there's a lot going on here, but you know, we'll break it down. So what we have here is we have our nav controller. We're going to need to use that. And then we have our navigation UI, which is the drawer layout. And we have our app bar configuration. So this is what we're going to use for the toolbar. And the toolbar is right here. So we need to connect all of these together since the app bar configuration has stuff like our fragments, and we need to add that to the drawer layout, and then we need to let the nav controller know. So anyways, so first things first, we set up that toolbar by finding the toolbar in activity main.xml. I'm just going to put this at the side here. Oh boy, this is all I want. Okay, so we get this toolbar right here, and what we do here is we basically replace the action, not really replace, but this toolbar is now the action bar, which is what this is. This is our toolbar with the hamburger icon. So we set that up as the action bar, and then what we do next is we get the fragment container view, and from that we have our nav host. That's our nav host fragment, and from that we get our nav controller. So now that we have our nav controller, we can basically do everything else. I'm just kidding. Well, let's get specific. So with the drawer layout, so we get the drawer layout, which is this thing right here. So let me put this away. So we get our drawer layout, then we set up an app bar configuration. The app bar configuration is like right here. So it's the navigation UI stuff with toolbar, and what we do is we define the top destinations in the app bar, and so what we do then is we set up the action bar with NavController. So so you see here that the app bar configuration, all of these fragments are set up with the drawer layout. So you know, all of these destinations are going to be connected with this drawer layout, and then we set that up with the nav controller. So that's what that is. Feel free to pause if that was too fast. Then we have our navigation view. So this is basically the UI of the drawer. So what we get is this navigation view right here. It has the nav menu as well. So we set that up with the nav controller as well. And with that, now that your drawer layout and so the toolbar, the drawer layout, nav graph, the navigation view are all in cahoots with the navigation controller, all is well. So this is basically the most complicated part about setting up the navigation. I mostly follow the documentation in order to follow this in the basically all of this stuff. So feel free to look at that. Or if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. And then this is an extra thing right here, if you're wondering about it. So basically what happens here is that, so what this is saying is, so if I go to flower fragment, so, okay. So when I go navigate to something, or sorry, so let's say I navigate to your flowers and then settings. So typically on the backstack, what would have happened is your flowers goes on and then settings also gets pushed on. And then if I go back, you expect that I'd go back to your flowers. But instead what happens is I said that if I'm at any of these fragments and I'm trying to navigate, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pop up to the flower fragment, which is this fragment. So this is the behavior I wanted, so that when I go back, I want to go back to the main fragment, which is this. And then what this is basically just supporting this icon. So this is what navigation up is. Okay, so, and I'll go over this later, why we use that. Okay, and the next thing, the most interesting part is the flowers and how when you click to them, you can go, you have a special profile page for it, and it has all these tabs with its special screens, and you can see that they're all referencing this data. You can see that, you know, when we pass this flower 8 data, like all of these tab pages know about it. So, and the rest of these screens are, you know, really boring. They don't really have any implementation. So that's what we'll basically go over next. So let's go to flower fragment. Flower fragment is right here. So flower fragment, so the flower fragment UI is literally just a recycler view. It's just one recycler view. And so that's why we set up this recycler view, and the layout manager is in a grid, and we set the recycler views adapter to my my adapter, this custom one that I made. I won't really go over it, but feel free to check out the code. It's just it's nothing really special. It just tells you how to make all that and what to do when you click on it. So, you know, I populated all of this stuff, dummy roses or dummy flowers, and then I submit the list to the adapter. And whenever you click on any one of them, what we do is we navigate to, we navigate to the flower profile fragment, and we send this flower bundle which has the information about this flower. And so I guess it would be helpful to know what our flower data is. I defined it in flower grid adapter, since this adapter is what creates this list in the first place, and where all the data kind of comes from. It has an ID, a name, and an image resource ID, and that's basically what we need to set you know, the properties of each of all the UI stuff in the cards. And the reason I have things like an ID is because we might want this in the future, maybe perhaps if we're going to use a database and we want like that as a primary key or something, and we will probably have, you know, more flowers than just a rose. And I have this parcelable so that we can easily bundle this into a parcel and send it over between different fragments. So basically, so that I can do things like this and have a flower bundle. And when I navigate to flower profile fragment, I can get this bundle. So yeah, here. By the way, I have a bunch of documentation for all of these things, so please feel free to check out the code on GitHub and read all of this since I'm going over it very fast. So this is our flower data, and here, let me pull this up. So this is the flower profile, and this is what opens when you click a specific flower. And so then I'll get into the view model in a sec. So what I do is, so now the bundle should be in our arguments since we navigated here, and the flower is the key. Also, there's this annoying thing where we have to deal with the version codes, and both get parsable functions have different parameters depending on your API. But yeah, basically, so this is a Kotlin thing where you check if it's null, and if it's not null, then we enter this let block. Otherwise, I just log that, it failed. But yeah, so the general thing is, like, once you get the flower data in the arguments received by flower fragment, received from flower fragment, then if it's not null, like it's valid, then you can basically do stuff right here. And so let's talk about how these tabs come into existence. So clearly, since so to tell you the truth, all of these are fragments. But if you notice about how to grow and ecology, these tabs are not in this nav graph. We only have 4 fragments, destination fragments, and none of these are in there. That's because in flower profile, we actually have these as tab items using this tab layout from Android Materials. So that's what I'm using. This is another form of navigation, not necessarily with Navigation UI, but I think this is like something that you will probably want. You probably want like multiple pages within one page. So this is how you might do that. So I use tab layout. There's that. And so what I do to make these tabs is I call this tab layout, which is right here, and I also use a view pager. So I have several things in order to create this whole thing. So set up tabs and horizontal paging with the child fragments, these things. So this pager adapter is something that I made and extend. This creates the fragment pages, and this thing holds the pages, the ViewPager2. And so it's kind of like this whole fragment container for navigation, but this is for this pager, or this ViewPager, so it's different. So yeah, I have, let's go to this pager adapter, the thing that creates the fragment pages. So it's down here. So, right, this pager adapter generates the pages, or the fragments, that the ViewPager2 shows. The ViewPager2 is this view container. And so when you use this pager adapter and you use this create fragment function and you give it a position, it's going to go to one of these fragments. And I defined all of those like here. They're basically just all of them literally just say this text something about the flower. So this is just to show that this actually works. Sorry, if you can see again, they also oh, sorry. Never mind. Hold on. So, so yes, we create a fragment, and with the pager adapter, and given a position, it's going to create one of these fragments, and we have 3 fragments. So, we have the pager adapter. So we're gonna set the ViewPager's adapter to our defined pager adapter, And then what we're going to do is we're going to link the tab layout and the ViewPager2 together. And so what this will do is when we click, a tab, we're going to synchronize with the pager. So basically this tabs is going to synchronize with, it's going to populate this view with the fragments that we defined right here. And this is literally just like what the text is right here. So yeah, then you attach them both, and yeah, so this is literally how you make this whole setup right there. And then this extra thing is this allows us to navigate back. This navigate up is this button right here. So when we go back, it'll navigate back to, so I guess navigate up basically means just go back to the last fragment that you came from. So yeah. Oh, and also the way that we set this title bar to whatever this name was is through this set action bar title from the main activity that you saw that I didn't really explain. So the toolbar that we have defined in the main activity, we can set the title using that function. And so this is another example of how this is a nice way of keeping the common UI, the global UI in the main activity, while the UI in the center is like kind of separate. And so the last thing that I'll go over that's worth noting is the use of the view model. Because how else do we get this data to these other fragments that are not in the graph? So in our flower profile fragment, so let's go back. So what we did was we have the flower data, and so I also created this view model. In our ViewModels video, I explained that this ViewModels delegate is basically a shorter way of just creating a ViewModels, except that this is scoped to this fragment and nowhere else. So this is unique, and then we're going to use that to expose the flower data to all of these pages. So, and I'll show you how we do that. So first, now that we have, when we receive this flower data, we're going to set the flower item in the view model. So let's go look at the view model. So this is the view model. This is supposed to be for a flower profile fragment. And so we have mutable live data here. I kind of went over live data also in the view model video. So basically, this view model is the source of truth for flower data in this fragment. So and then we have this read-only live data right here. And the only way you can update this is by calling the set flower item. And this is supposed to be nice because if you call this function, then it's an atomic update, preventing race conditions so that not everybody has to be calling this thing. And it's a better way to interface with the ViewModel. Easier for debugging as well. Anyways, so this thing is created by a flower profile fragment. And as soon as we receive the flower bundle, we set this flower item. It is supposed to, it is supposed to be this flower item in this lambda. So when you do the null checking and you do this question and dot, I think this is the Elvis operator. Basically, when you do this let function, the thing that you were checking is called it. So, anyways, now that the view model has the flower data, what happens now is that when we go to the tabs, what these child fragments can do now is they can use the live data to observe the view model data. So that's what, oh, sorry, yes. So how do they access the view model? So there's this link here that may help you understand how owner producers works. So in the view model video, I showed that, any like activity or fragment that creates a view model becomes a view model store owner, like that. And so basically we're trying to access the view model from our parent fragment specifically. So, and once we have that, we observe this concurrently and get the flower data, and thus we display this. So this is basically how you do navigation. I think this is very important, though it's like, not that much. But this is much more efficient than, passing intents between activities. And this is also the modern way. This is, these are best practices, and I think it's very important that we know how to do it. So anyways, yeah, thank you so much for watching my demo, and hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. And I'm sorry it's not in Java, but it's just much easier to do in Kotlin, but I will try to see if I can do a Java version. But anyways, have a great day or great night. Bye.